Thank you very much, Sorcha. So I believe we can come to another question and answer session, although we are a bit later on time, but we will try to be very quick and brief. So I start right away. Given the substantial interaction by the various professionals within a team to design an NZEB, that's to Juan Trevesi especially, can such a team be considered the basic professional unit for the new building market? Could such an experienced team become autonomous solution providers for other companies, replacing individual freelancers? Good. That's a question to you, Juan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say that this would be what we could call the professional unit. Okay. I think we have to change in order to design NZEB buildings. Of course, we need all this team work together. Otherwise, for example, most of people assumes that engineers and architects have to work together, but not so many people is assuming that the construction manager and the decision maker has to be involved. Okay, and my experience is that in many cases that's the main reason for the problems in construction or the changes during the process because of financing problems. So I would say that in order to build good NZEB buildings and be feasible to build NZEB buildings, of course, we need this unit. But I'm not so sure if it has to be one of each, okay? One engineer, one architect, one construction manager, and one decision maker. But of course, it has to be all these four professions at least involved on it. And about the individual freelancers, I don't think it has to be a replacement. I'm sure that individual freelancers can be involved inside these teams. At least in Spain, they are already involved. For example, it's very typical that architects do not design the building 100% by their own. They have their engineers, they have their structural engineers, they have their construction managers, and so on. Those people could be also freelancers, okay? But they are involved within the architect team. I don't know if it's clear my answer, more or less.
Yes, I think it's clear. So we have do the different needs between major building groupings like offices, commerce, residential, social housing, etc., lead to specialized service providers and relevant professionals. For example, specialists in NZEB for single-family houses, specialists in NZEB schools or government buildings, and so on. I think I leave this also for you to you first, Juan.
Okay. Well, I will say that about NZEB does not really change this topic. I mean, for example, a hospital is a very specific building, and a designer or a maintenance people or have to know how this building is. I think that this level of specialism has not to be so deep for schools, government buildings, single-family houses, etc. But, for example, a museum, a hospital, today, designers of this type of buildings are already specialists on this type of buildings. It does not really change because of NZEB. That's my point of view.
Okay, thank you. So as I understand, already the profile of certain companies or teams is specialized nowadays, and they just have to go further towards the NZEB criteria.
That's it.
Thank you. Then the question to Sorcha. Are there available trainings on energy performance contracting currently for the housing providers or public authority project managers?
Which, oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm on now. Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah. Okay, there was one project called Fresh, which was focused on the implementation of EPD in social housing, which has produced case studies and analysis. And I think also of relevance when we talk about energy performance contracting, we can look at the Energy Sprung model, which works on that basis, whereby the savings made on the energy bill and by producing renewable energy are used to counteract increases in the rent so that your living costs remain the same. And we will have a session on the 1st of December as part of the PROF TRAC training course, nearly zero training course, on that scheme. So that can be already a part of a potential training course.
Thank you. So that's good news. And then the last question, large-scale investment mobilization probably requires benchmarks. How many person hours are required, for example, for the design and construction of a square meter of an NZEB residence? Does skill development and standardization gradually lead to estimating such benchmarks? That's a difficult, complicated questions. Would you like to comment on it, Peter?
Indeed, a difficult question. As for now, I do not see directly that skills development and standardization directly lead to it, but I think they can facilitate that process. I think the idea to come to such benchmarks is extremely interesting. Also, if you want to especially if you want to come to a transition in deep renovation in Europe. So I definitely like the idea, but as for now, I do not see directly how skills development and standardization directly lead to it, but definitely it will contribute to it.
Yes, and maybe if I may add, so what I wanted to point out also in the beginning, so that we will need from the building sector really increase the level of services
yes.
if we come to more complicated buildings and how to operate them, so continuous commissioning or certification schemes. So there is need for more engineering, let's say consultancy services probably in the future, and that might increase the costs also, and not only for the construction by the operation. And maybe standardization actually can help to decrease this, because if we automate as much as possible in the process, then the prices and the actually hours of a specialist can be lower that is spent on monitoring or adjusting a complicated building system. But indeed, skill development, we don't know whether it can contribute to define these benchmarks. Okay, so anybody else from the speakers would like to comment to any questions? Or then we can maybe close our session. We are a bit later, so I think it's a good time. So thank you very much. I would like to thank again for the speakers and also for the attendees who listened to our session. And maybe, Alexander, you will tell us how and where the slides will be available.
Yes, thank you very much. Indeed, as usual, the webinar slides and the recordings will be available in a couple of weeks after the webinar, so early December. Thanks to everybody who participated and to attendees who stayed with us until now. If there are any other questions, sometimes there are even after the webinars, please feel free to send them through the contact form in build-up, and we'll be happy to forward them to the webinar speakers as well. I think that the subject has been very interesting, and it's quite possible that there might be more interest even after this. So thanks to everybody. Philippe, would you like to say any closing words, perhaps, on behalf of EASME?
Yes. Well, as I said in my presentation, we're carrying on funding construction skills for sustainable energy. So the Build Up Skills initiative is carrying on. I can also say that we are just starting now doing an evaluation of the initiative, or at least the first parts of it that were done. So we can look out for that on, that'll surely be published on the Build Up portal as well as on the EASME website in the coming couple of months.